It wouldn't be like Wargaming to introduce another tank, much like the AVRE, that has a giant lower plate made of spaced armour that makes the frontal armour of this tank absolutely ridiculous. Yes, they've done it again, ladies and gentlemen. The frontal armour of this tank is crazy, and that is, not particularly the best for the opponents, and you're going to see how I can manage to hold an entire flank basically with very little team support. And I mean, if we had team support, we'd have probably done a lot better, but either way, you'd have seen exactly how this tank can bounce a ton of rounds, as well as just be a brutal force when it comes to its main armament as well, because it does have a fantastic gun that's going to be able to rinse your opponents. Now, we are, of course, talking about a matter of life and death, and it certainly is for the enemy team. Now, the good thing about this tank is that it gets that high alpha for the tier. I mean, considerably more than some of the others that you can see in that kind of medium slash heavy tank playstyle, kind of the hybrid between the two, which you see with things like the Magash, the T55 Enigma, etc., and of course the Cobra Cat. Now, this tank has that higher end of alpha. It also gets the higher end of penetration for typical vehicles in this tier, which means that for the most part, you're pretty much sound against any tanks that you're going to be fighting. I mean, the majority of them are going to be, easily able to be penned by you. And yeah, it's just really nice to play in that regard. So the gun works perfectly, and you'll see that throughout the gameplays. How we've set up this tank is we're running it with advanced loader to boost up the damage per minute so that it does reach some of the higher levels, 5,130 damage per minute with this vehicle, which is really nice indeed. And if, for example, if we were to compare it to the WZ122, 3,400. So you've got an extra amount of damage. Of course, the WZ doesn't have a commander in it, which will massively affect it. It also doesn't have equipment, but you still be in around 1,000 more damage per minute, which is an extra 20% over that tank. And for example, if we pick the Chieftain 120, you're on a similar sort of par, especially when you add in a commander. So it's pretty good at being able to output damage, and the gun is really, really fantastic when it comes to that. And the good thing about this tank is that it does get this kind of well-angled turret. It's kind of hard to hit from long ranges, and the spaced armor on the front is, of course, just a pain in the backside for everyone involved. And it's not like it's particularly thin either, as you're looking at 40 millimeters of frontal plated armor before you can actually pen the real armor, which is pretty decent. So yeah, I mean, it makes penning this thing very, very annoying from the front, especially in that lower plate, which is where everyone's going to be aiming at. Now, you can pen in through the frontal drive wheel, so if people angle like this, you can go in through the front of the tracks, which I highly recommend. If you're coming up against this thing, you can essentially aim through the tracks and you're going to be able to pen it. You've also got a cupola which you can pen, and the cheeks of this tank, although they are, quite well angled, can be penned if you can hit them, and if you can hit the flattest area because they're angled. You can always find a angle that is going to be decent when it's angled like this. So that's kind of the armor model of this tank. What else does this thing have? Well, the thing that we've done with this tank is actually boosted up the top forward speed so that we can, keep up and maintain that speed quite nicely, and also without having to, change how we're going to play the tank all too much. And it also means that we can get an improved rotation speed, which is going to be very crucial in terms of being able to use that frontal armor as effectively as possible, because you can move side to side quicker, and it makes it more difficult for people to pinpoint that weak point in between the tracks. So that's kind of why we've gone with the equipment that we've actually gone out with in this tank, and of course advanced loader, and then we've gone with gun stabilizer to make sure that that gun is singing all of the time. And if you wanted to really min-max this tank, maybe you could take that vertical stabilizer out for improved ventilation. If you think you're going to be brawling all the time, that's kind of what I would do. Or alternatively, remove the traction system if you don't really have a problem with being slightly slower, as this tank doesn't have the best power to weight ratio, 18.65. So it's on the lower end of that regard. So, you know, you could potentially go for the horsepower upgrade, but it's only 5% and it's really not going to make a massive difference. Whereas, you know, that chassis rotation speed is going to be really nice to have on this tank. So hopefully that's given you an overview of what this tank can do, how it can tear apart opponents, and we're going to see exactly what I mean by the armor model working as intended. And yeah, let's see if it's able to hold an entire flank, I guess. And so we kick off a game on Corellia in the northeastern spawn of the map. Now this map is one that Wargaming know is pretty unbalanced at the beginning, because you can get hit straight away from spawn, which is always fantastic because yeah, both spawns or cap circles are available to be seen across the map, even if there is a load of trees in between the two. But of course you can find angles where you can just spot from there to the enemy base, so that's always good. Now we are going to push over to this side. I'm seeing that some of the team have gone over here and we want to kind of support them. And I was actually originally thinking of going up, but then I saw that quite a few tanks look like they're already gone up there, and it might be a lost cause to move without going. So we kind of hold back at this point just to see if we can get some damage on people that are going to be pushing up. And it was the right decision, because not only have we found some of the tanks up on the top, but also on the kind of lower place of this map, which can essentially get shots into both sides, the front and the rear of you, and you can quickly get removed from the game, which is yeah, not what we want when playing in this tank. Now the first round that we block is our teammates, which is yeah, well done Eclipse. It's a very, very good start to the game. And so what we do here is kind of just move up to this corner area and seeing exactly what is about to happen with regards to this armor. That is the first official hit from the enemy team that ends up bouncing, and yeah, it was just bounced straight off of that frontal plate, which is no surprise. Now we track the Brennis and we're able to get another one into him, and he's taking considerable amounts of damage, but we've done 2,000 damage, which is pretty decent. I mean, that damage per minute working quite well and is on the higher end of all of them in this sort of tier, especially considering the type of tank this is and the armor that it is on this tank. So we've bounced another round there from the enemy M48. Or M60 even, and so we've been able to bounce quite a few, and you can see that the enemy team are just struggling to be able to deal with this tank, and you see me here rocking up onto these opponents and able to essentially sit out in front of them feeling pretty confident. Now, well, would I do this every single time? No, but if you are in a situation where you do have to be that frontline warrior, this is a tank that I would say is very good at doing so, because it doesn't get a lower plate. It's not an easy pen, as in, you know, people actually have to aim. If they don't aim or they auto aim you, it usually doesn't pen. Now, will it pen sometimes? Yeah, of course, it's World of Tanks, we all know what that's like. And of course the M60 on our team decides to jump in front of me, and hopefully he won't do anything silly in a second. Now we try and get a shot onto this M60, and then our teammates sit side on to literally like 8 tanks, which is super annoying because I'm losing out on damage here because he's in the way. And yeah, thank you very much teammate for just being very happy. And of course now we are in a situation where it gives the enemy team the opportunity to push up and try and deal damage to us. But you can see here we've just remaining quite easy to essentially just go hold down, and even when we do go hold down, they're just shooting at the lower plate, which, because they think, oh, he's going hold down, maybe I should shoot that lower plate. Now that doesn't work very well, and so it's not looking too good. Now we get penned in the turret here, and this is really where the tank is kind of let down by its armor, is that the turret is not so good at being able to bounce rounds, but we do manage to set someone on fire, and there you go. We deal quite a bit of damage, and we held off the opponents for a long time. It just would have been nicer if the friendly team actually got into a position to shoot these rather than sitting out in front of them for the entire game and just feeding the enemy team. But we did what we did, picked up over 7,600 damage in this game, and of course a little bit of assist and a decent amount of blocked. And often in this tank you won't see the full amount of block because it's spaced armor, and essentially it doesn't count as block damage if it doesn't actually bounce off of your actual armor in the game, or sometimes the registering's a little bit off. So hopefully that's given you an indication as to how it can hold off in games. But let's jump into another one, because there's something else that I want to showcase, and it's maybe a little bit better of a result. And so we jump into Erenburg, which Erenburg being a map that I'm pretty sure we all know as Campenburg, and on this sort of game mode, or at least Cold War, this well and truly is Campenburg. It's it's just not particularly too fun, but we're going to take advantage of the fact that people will camp on a hill, and we're going to do exactly that. And that's because what I like to do on Erenburg is to pick up some early damage. I apologise for the puns, they're literally coming out without even needing to. But the Erenburg damage is always, very nice to have indeed. Now, what we do here is we get into this location. Often people will try and cross to this side of the map, and you can get free shots. And that is exactly what we did. Only got one this time, but you can get a lot more if opponents do go and take the wrong routes, which they often do in this game. So keep that in your back of your mind. Now what we do here is we get up into this location, and of course we remain undetected, and because it's true vision, and how entirely balanced true vision is that you can see these tanks and how fun it must be for the enemy team, we just basically sit here and we fire off our rounds across the map, initiating the Cold War stalemate in Erenburg. And it's a fun and completely balanced map that I don't think anyone's going to exploit with any of these sitting in the same position and farming anyone that actually moves. Now you can see here, yet again, just able to get easy damage. Now I'm not going to sit here all game, don't worry, we do actually make a play, but I want to show you that you don't always have to be aggressive all of the time, and although, you know, if you sit back in the game too long, you can end up really negatively impacting your game, and you'll very much regret doing so. You can actually get a decent amount of damage, you can keep your health, and you can trade your teammates who are throwing themselves away against the opponents that are getting spotted, and it's just genuinely just quite nice to do. And you can see here we're picking up even more damage, and you can see how quickly you get damage. We've literally hit 6 shots, we're on 3k, make that 3.7k in 7 shots. So it's really easy to be able to do. And all you have to do is just keep your brain switched on. I know, that's probably a very difficult thing for us World of Tanks players, that's me included, don't worry. And essentially all you have to do is just make sure that you don't throw yourself away. And it's quite easy in a tank that can go quite fast, like you're seeing in this thing. But if you hold back just for that initial part of the game where all of the YOLO wagons end up throwing themselves away, like you're not going to, you can then go in and farm up any of the remaining hit points of damage in the later game, which is what we're intending to do. Now, in my brain I'm thinking the damage is kind of dried up here. The majority of the enemy team, we've either hit them and they've got scared and they're not just doing what they were doing previously, or, you know, we've basically taken them out, or our team have taken them out. So I'm starting to think, where can I push to try and get a little bit more damage? We picked up 4.8k so far, and we want to push that to the higher end as we go through this game, and there you go, an extra 500. Now my brain's going, I really want to move because we're going to need to at some point, and so, you know, at the end of the day, when the damage is presenting it to yourself, you try and get it as much as possible. Now I know that the enemy team, they've taken significant amounts of damage, they're probably not going to poke that much more, and so I make the play of actually moving. There's a surprise. Yes, this game was a little bit campy at the beginning, but it is Erenburg, so I'm not surprised. But what we do is we take my usual play when playing in World War II, which is more of the aggressive play up towards the enemy hill, because as soon as you get into this position, which you're about to see, the enemy team are basically knackered. Like they lose pretty much 90% of the games where you get into this spot. As soon as an opponent gets to here, it is curtains, because what happens, well, exactly this as to what we're doing against this M60 and the T-72A. So we find the M60, we want to get him out. He's getting got that big rocket launcher or missile launcher, who is just a pain. They then have to either just take my shots in the backside, which you know, is probably pretty painful, or they consistently just turn around and try and get damage on me. But there's only one of me and there's multiple opponents in front who are going to get more shots onto them. So they've kind of got to make a decision. Do they want damage or do they want to get farmed? Now, we pull up here and we basically find the T-55A, or the T-55 Enigma, sorry. And yeah, his hit points are quickly evaporated and we pick up 7,900 damage. But can we get the final shot on the Leopard 1 on the move? Of course we can. It's Cold War with brilliant accuracy. And there you go. A nice little 8,100 damage in this game. And of course, yeah, pretty much a decent play on Erenburg. That is literally the perfect sort of playstyle that you want on Erenburg to win, as long as the enemy team, you know, don't do the exact same to you and you don't spawn on the other side. So yeah, the late game push, it's something that you do have to do if you want to solidify your win. And if you want to break through the opponents, it's much better than kind of going around where our team were, because yeah, you can create that extra angle and force them to turn. But hopefully this video has showed you all about the Amolad. Whether you should buy it, I don't know. It's very expensive. And yeah, I mean, would I go out and say this tank is absolutely overpowered? No. Did Wargaming make a completely easy to play tank? Yes. Did they need to make the spaced armor on the front of the tank as good as it is that you literally can't pen it? No. Is it balanced in that way? No. Is the tank overall balanced? Kind of. But it's probably more on the competitive side than the non-competitive side, if you know what I mean. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this review. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. If you completely disagree with everything I've just said or anything that we've said in this video, let me know. And of course, give your own opinions. And I just thank you all for watching this video and all of the videos that we've been doing recently. And I'm trying to get back on the horse of creating daily videos. So yeah, hopefully you guys do enjoy those. And I'll see you, hopefully, in the next one. Goodbye.